And we will be going to South Africa now, where there is a continued cry for the decriminalization of sex work in South Africa. And one of the stories that have spotlighted this occurrence or development is a 20-year-old man, Sifiso Nkwanasi, who was accused of murdering 6 sex workers in Johannesburg, who has also abandoned his attempt to get bail. Now, Nkwanasi was arrested following the gruesome discovery of 6 bodies in various stages of decomposition in Joburg, South Africa. I remember vividly News Central covered that story and gave us an insight saying that these bodies were found in his apartment in a more like a very gruesome image of, these decomposed bodies of supposed sex workers. And it happened in October, and there has been a follow-up since then. Now, sex work organizations believe that more women could have been killed in that occurrence. Now, this had led to the people demanding the decriminalization of sex workers, especially in South Africa. Now, we have more details into the story as News Central's Bettina Nwelih sheds more light on the situation. Please take a listen.
Sex work is a crime in South Africa, which means that all that is performed on the streets or in brothels remain illegal and policed as such. This makes it particularly difficult for sex workers who operate on the streets to be safe. They fear of being arrested by the police, often forcing them into unsafe spaces where clients are free to abuse them, and they are also vulnerable to police abuse.
Sex workers are human beings, sex workers are mothers, sex workers are sisters, sex workers are providers, sex workers are workers.
A 2015 report called for the continued criminalization of sex work to prevent people from knowingly living off the earnings and benefiting from the prostitution of another person. Rebutting the argument that poverty is one of the reasons people engage in sex work, the report says women should rather seek social welfare interventions. But this is not a viable option. Given the country's very high levels of poverty and joblessness, the resources of the government to support poor women are spread thin. Almost 47% of South Africans now depend on government grants.
That's why I want sex work to be decriminalized so that women and anybody else that wants to do sex work can be safe and not have to worry about being raped or arrested for their choice to do with what they want to do with their bodies.
In other climes, legislation makes sex work legal under certain conditions, such as regular medical checkups, licensing and registration as a form of state control of sex workers. Some African countries have a combination of legality and illegality.
This call has been on for more than 20 years now, and feet have been dragged. It's always been shoved at the back, and we have been going from pillar to post.
With partial decriminalization, the sex worker is not criminalized, but their clients are. In other words, the buyer of the service can be arrested and not the seller. This is called the Swedish model because this is where it was used for the first time in 1999. While this may sound like a good idea, it actually makes sex workers more vulnerable because it drives their work underground.
So we have engaged with the whole Justice Department and Correctional Services that is responsible for the constitution of the country. And they started, what they did was to say they needed to consult key specific population in South Africa and also sex workers themselves. They must be part of a broader consultation. So the consultation have taken place now, and we are in a process where the bill of decrim is now going to go through Parliament so that the Parliament can do the voting whether they accept the bill or not.
In February 2022, John Jeffrey, South Africa's Deputy Justice Minister, announced further consultations on the Law Reform Commission's report. According to him, there was a need to fully engage with all stakeholders, including government departments, on the proposed policy options and their implications, given the diversity of views, even though public hearings on sex work had already taken place. Bettina Nwelih, reporting for News Central.